Any idea what biotech companies do?
Research.
They do research, right? What do they make? They make money, because that's part of why they're companies. They make money. So they got to do something. They got to make something that's going to make them money. Although it takes a lot of them about 7 to 8 years to get to the point where they make money. But they're trying to make money, and they're trying to do it in a lot of different ways. They're trying to make drugs. They're trying to make food. They're trying to make things that can clean up the environment. And so they're doing a lot of things that are useful for humans, but the question is, what's special about biotechnology? Why do we call it biotechnology? Biotechnology has to do with the fact that we use DNA. Essentially, we use DNA to make therapeutics. We use DNA to make genetically modified plants. We use DNA to make useful products. The question is, how do we use DNA? And so before we go and we talk about how we use DNA, I thought I'd refresh your memory on what DNA is. Because a lot of people are a little unsure what DNA is. So DNA is like a genetic blueprint. Okay? It is the instruction sheet, it is the recipe that your cell uses, all your cells use to make you who you are. It's a recipe to make your nose the way your nose is. It's a recipe to make your color of your eyes blue. It's a recipe to make insulin. It's a recipe to make muscles. It is the recipe. It is not the blue eye color. It is not the muscles. It is just the instructions. It tells the cell how to do that. And so when you pass on your genes to your children, you're passing on your DNA. You're passing on your set of instructions, or some of your sets of instructions, on what made you who you are. You pass some of that on to your children, and your spouse passed on some of theirs, and that's why the offspring are unique, because they're a little bit of mom and a little bit of dad.
So I have a question. You tell me why DNA is called a genetic blueprint. The blueprint, why is it called blueprint? Is it
Blueprint, I usually call it that because it's the instruction set. It's the set of instructions that makes all the proteins and structures and functions in your body. It's the instruction set. So blueprint is like an instruction set. Like I think of a blueprint, how I'm going to build this building, right? It's a drawing of how I'm going to build the building. This is just a set. You can think of it as a recipe. It's another way to think of it. It's just a set of instructions.
Because genetic character, each and every genetic character is within the DNA. That's why it is called a blueprint.
Yes, because what it is, it's a blueprint because it tells me I have a set of instructions in my cells that say my eyes are blue. You have a set of instructions in your cells that say your eyes are brown. We have different instructions on how to make our eyes. That's all the DNA is. It's instructions. Okay? Right. And so these instructions, unlike the English language where there's 26 letters, there are only 4 letters in the genetic instruction alphabet. It's A, G, C, and T. Okay? And from those 4 letters, I can make you. That's the instruction. I can use those 4 letters to make all the proteins, all the structures I can that make me who I am, make you who you are. And it turns out that this sequence of letters that determines my structures and my functions is unique to me. Nobody in the world has my DNA sequence. Nobody has your DNA sequence. Everybody has a unique DNA sequence. And that is why we are unique. And remember, DNA is the instructions. That's the key, because that's what's going to be the foundation of recombinant DNA technology.
Sorry?
Yeah.
That means everyone in Earth is unique.
Yes.
Has a unique DNA.
Yes. Absolutely. Because the DNA is the instructions to make you who you are. If the DNA is unique, then they're going to make a unique you. Because it's just the instruction sheet.
Okay, it's like fingerprints.
Right, it's like your fingerprints are determined by your DNA. Your fingerprints are different from mine because your DNA sequence is different from mine. Okay?
So what about twins?
Twins are the only exception, right? And that's because when a twin is born, what happens with a twin, essentially, is that a sperm and an egg come together, and usually when that happens, that grows into a baby. But sometimes what happens is like after a few cell divisions, because what happens, go from a sperm and an egg fusing to a baby is a lot of cell divisions to increase lots of cells. But sometime early in those cell divisions, a cell breaks off from that organism and plants again into the uterus again. And that cell that broke off becomes a person. And it becomes an identical person because they had the exact same, they came from the same cell. They had the exact same. So identical twins, they are the exception because they are genetically identical. Okay? So one thing that I like to show people, and when they see this, it blows their mind, is how much DNA you have inside your body. Okay? So one human cell, one little bit, you can't see it with your eye, you have to look at it under a microscope, has 6 billion of those letters. Okay? And your 6 billion letters are different from my 6 billion letters. Okay? And if I take that 6 billion letters and I put them end to end, that's about 2 yards of DNA in one little cell that I can't see with my naked eye. It turns out the adult, us, we have 100 trillion cells. That's 100 with 12 zeros now. That's how many cells are in your body. So you started out as one cell, and you became 100 trillion cells. So if I take the amount of cells times the amount of DNA per cell, I come up with 112 billion miles. That's how much DNA is in your body, 112 billion miles. That is 26 round trips from the sun to the outer edge of the solar system. That's 112 billion miles. That's a lot of miles. Right? So the question is, how do I get that DNA inside my body? Well, it's a very, very thin thread. It's a molecular thread. And what I have are spools inside my cell. And I wind the thread around the spools many, many times. And then the spools wind on themselves, and they make chromosomes. And by doing all this winding around spools, this is how I get all that DNA into my body.
Wow.
So now we know what DNA is.
Wow.
The question is, what is recombinant DNA technology? Because all biotechnology is based on this, recombinant DNA technology. If you do this, you're a biotech company. Okay? And recombinant DNA technology is a fancy word for saying I take one DNA molecule from one place, from one source, from one organism. I take DNA from another organism. I cut it with these molecular scissors. I have some molecular scissors in my toolbox, and I cut that DNA, snip, and then I take one piece from DNA 2, one piece from DNA 1, and I glue them together, and I make a new molecule called a recombinant molecule. It's half 1, half 2.
Is DNA 1 and DNA 2 from the same body?
It can be from different organisms. It can be from the same body, it can be from different bodies, it can be from any different organism. It doesn't matter. It's just 2 pieces of DNA. It's not that you don't see in nature, that aren't together in nature. Right? It's man-made. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we take